Good morning. Anthony Dallmann-Jones. Uh, I'm a professor at Marion University, and I have written a few books. And I was a psychotherapist, and I worked with 28 clients a week, one-on-one, and 2 group therapy sessions. And after 4 years of that, teaching in the prisons for 3 years, men's prison, the women's prisons, working in county jails, police athletic league, etc. I learned a lot about addiction from the school of life. And I have had my own experiences with addiction. Now, first of all, we're going to define addiction. And it's not as simple as you think. What's meaningful that isn't complex? Addiction means being able to say no. Addiction means not being able to say no to something that has life-damaging consequences. Now, there's all kinds of facets to one's life. Most people narrowly define addiction as, oh, you're damaging your body. That's just one facet of being alive. Let's get real. There's a physical reality. I have arms, legs, muscles, skin, etc. But I have an emotional life, and if human beings aren't emotions, then they aren't anything at all. Mad, sad, glad, fear, love. I have a list in one of my books on stress. I think over 500. Over 500 emotion words. And then I stopped, and I think I tell people in the book, don't send me. It's called Living a Stress-Free Life. Don't send me anymore. That's enough, isn't it? So we have an emotional life. We have a social life. We have a financial life. We have a spiritual life. So we have a lot of facets to what we call life. It's just not about a heartbeat and breathing, physically alive. Excuse me, when I talk, I dry out a little bit. Oh, coffee. But does it have life-damaging consequences? There's the finer point. Okay, is if it has life-damaging consequences and you cannot say no to it, then you're talking about addiction. Now, I'm also talking about, I'm going to include all the people who are really sticky on these points are going to disagree with me, but for the sake of this series of videos, I'm going to include obsessions and compulsions. Define those. Compulsions are behaviors that you must do over and over again, and you just can't stop doing them. Some of them are actually, people think they're beneficial, like perfectionism. To the extreme, a person spends so much. I had a superintendent I worked with one time who I went to his office. I knew something was wrong because everything on his desk was squared. And while he was out of the room, I looked, he had a pile of papers, various correspondence, and they were all, the corners matched all the way down. All 4 corners absolutely lined up. Now, in a ream of paper, yeah, this was like a ream of paper, except these were all separate documents. And everything was absolutely perpendicular or parallel on his desk. Now, how much time does that take out of one's life to make that happen? And I understood he was also always very dressed to the T, every hair in place. And I heard a rumor that at home he would get so outraged that he had been known to jump up on the coffee table and jump up and down because something was out of place in his house. So now we're talking about a process addiction of abuse, because obviously this is going to damage your family life when you're like that with other people. Everything's about your perfectionism. And of course, people are not perfect. So you're going to be constantly either anxious or angry, obsessed, would be with thinking. Okay, I start off separating these two. Compulsion is behavior, and obsession is thinking. So having thoughts that you can't stop, they go over and over and over in your head, and they're starting to have life-damaging consequences. Okay, compulsions again would be like cleaning or hand washing, like organizing, things like that. Okay, so we're going to divide addiction into two aspects then. So we're going to have process addiction, and we're going to have substance addiction. So I guess I can erase this now and you stop peering through it, eh? Okay, and so we have substance addiction. It would be to like tobacco, food, as they say in Britain, drugs, and there's all forms of drugs, and also you could be process addicted to gambling, or and some of the compulsions I mentioned, cleaning, etc. I had a friend whose girlfriend was addicted to reading. And you say, well, reading's good for you. Yes, but she couldn't stop reading. She read when she was out with people, even people she was meeting for the first time. She would have a paperback under the table, and she'd be making the smile, and then, but she's really, her mind was down here reading. She read when she drove. She was reading, and the book underneath the steering wheel. So this is an accident waiting to happen, and she had had accidents. So her reading had life-damaging consequences, potentially so, and she couldn't say no to it. So you can be addicted to almost anything, any substance. People say, oh, I'm addicted to chocolate. I'm a chocolate addict. Well, probably not. You like chocolate. You sometimes think you could eat a whole vat of chocolate, but the truth is, it doesn't have life-damaging consequences. Just because you crave something doesn't mean you're an addict. Now, if you had an allergy to chocolate and you were breaking out and throwing up every time you ate chocolate, yet you couldn't say no to eating chocolate, now we're talking addiction to chocolate. So back to my initial statement about coffee. Am I addicted to coffee because I have it every morning? Is it damaging my life? It can get down to finer points. You know, if I was doing things that endangered my life in order to have coffee, you know, like if I had no money for food, my children needed shoes, but I went out and bought 5 pounds of coffee so I'd have it stockpiled and I wouldn't run out. Now you might start talking about an addiction because it's having life-damaging consequences. It's damaging your family life. Got the point? Okay, good. That's enough on that. So, two forms of addiction: substance addiction, process addiction. There's no end to the many forms of addiction. Okay, the list goes on and on. And to review, we put compulsions and obsessions in here because compulsive behaviors, obsessive thinking patterns, they start eating away. Just imagine them like an acid eating away at your financial life, social life, emotional life, mental life, family life, physical life, etc., those facets of your life, and you can't stop it, then you need help. Okay, so that's the end of part 1 on addiction. The next part, we're going to talk about the process addiction, and that is a very strange one to most people, the process addiction to abuse. In other words, being addicted to being abused or to handing out abuse. How in the world could that happen? It happens all the time. You really need to see that video. Meanwhile, this is Anthony Dallmann-Jones. You can reach me by email at asdjones@gmail.com if you have questions. Thank you very much.